Jury's down here to the courtroom.
All right, Agent Garner, we had stopped off here 12:22 PM, just after noon, in the murder time frame of 12:21 to 12:24, correct?
Correct, sir.
All right, do we have some sort of phone activity at 12:22:40?
Yes, we have a data session at 12:22:40 that accessed the tower 29098, sector 23762, azimuth 180, means that antenna was facing south. That duration of that data session lasted 6 seconds.
Okay, and
That tower right there could provide coverage for the homicide scene.
okay, so this tower right here,
Yes, sir.
south, and like we said before, this is not a boundary, this is for illustrative purposes.
Yes, sir. Correct.
Homicide scene is the red dot here, is that right?
That's correct.
I mean, if I could see my cursor again. And the homicide scene, yellow line. So McKay is here. And the tower is north of the homicide scene.
Yes, sir.
We're in the neighborhood of Orange Mound. And this is 12:22:40. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
What is this blue shaded area up here?
That is the mapping of a previous cell tower that was accessed, that was north of the homicide scene.
Oh, okay, I got you. So we've already looked at that, one.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then we come down here for 12:22, and we're on the tower that could provide coverage to the homicide scene.
Yes, sir. And this is the data session that was mapped at 12:22:40. The 12:23:05, that was an incoming voice call from 901-315-9866. That call was not answered and it was sent to voicemail. And that accessed tower 164286, sector 131, azimuth of 90, which is facing east. And And then the,
I think we went back, I'm sorry, I think we went backwards, you said, okay. So now we are less than a minute from that last phone call, is that right?
yes,
And I see Orange Mound.
this is the tower that's north of the homicide scene.
North of the homicide.
Yes, sir. Airways and Lamar, just north of.
So would it be fair to say the phone has moved at this point? Or yes or no?
That phone just accessed that tower. I don't know where it would be.
Is this tower close to the other tower?
Yes, sir. That was the previous slide where you saw the little slice of shaded blue north of, that's that tower.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So let's go back to that slide. I thought you had said this was a previous call, but is this a?
That is a
subsequent
previous call,
Okay.
but then the device reconnects to that tower again.
So 1222, the one that could cover the homicide scene.
Yes, sir.
1223, we're back up on this tower that is north of the homicide scene.
Yes, sir.
Could this tower also cover the homicide scene?
I wouldn't know that unless I was able to do like a drive test on it to see the coverage that tower could
So would it be
extend out.
would it be impossible to say yes or no to that?
Without testing, it'd be impossible. Yes, sir.
Now, do also see, because the pins are so hard to see from far away. This is Bradley Street, an address on that Bradley Street, is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right, if we could skip forward.
And if we'll back up one, that slide there, that unanswered call that the device accessed the tower just north of, where you can actually see the shaded corner. That device then reconnected to the tower just south of it. When that unanswered call was sent to voicemail, it accessed that tower, 29098, sector 23762, Aspen is facing south. So you have an incoming call that accessed the tower north of it. That call is not answered and it's sent to voicemail. And that transaction connected to the tower just south of it. That's what we're seeing right there.
And the tower just south of it, is it this tower?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this is the same tower we saw at 1222 that covers the homicide scene?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So to get this right, there's activity at 1222 at a tower that covers the homicide scene.
Yes, sir.
There's activity at 1223, which is the call and voicemail,
Yes, sir.
which accesses two different towers.
Yes, sir.
One is this tower north of, I'm doing that now. One is this tower slightly north of the homicide scene
Yes, sir.
that may or may not cover the homicide scene.
Correct.
And then when voicemail picks up or whatever, same call, different activity, it accesses the tower south of it.
Correct. Accesses a separate tower. Yes,
Which
sir.
is that same tower that services the homicide scene.
Yes, sir.
Does that necessarily mean that the phone was moving at the time since it went one tower to another tower?
It could be indicative of movement. It could be that tower that services the homicide scene is just north of the interstate. And if there was a lot of traffic, that tower could get full and it would shift off its it would say it's a busy, full, no more traffic. So it would pass off its communications to another tower.
Okay. Would it be fair to say then that these towers are close enough to each other that it couldn't mean the phone is moving, or it may not mean that the phone is moving?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay.
And this is the transaction is listed in the records of the incoming call and being sent to voicemail that I mapped out. had 26 different calls between 12:58:33 and 1:57:50 that access this tower in South Memphis. It's going to be tower 157.889. Two sectors, 3 and 13. That's going to denote the antennas. You have more than one facing the north-northwest at azimuth of 345. And that cell tower provides coverage for the Gospel Gardens apartments.
So now we're about 30 minutes or more, a little bit more after the homicide, and the phone's in an entirely separate area of Memphis,
Yes, sir.
entirely separate tower,
Correct.
vastly different coverage,
Yes, sir.
vastly different towers, but we are the tower that would service the Gospel Garden apartments.
Yes, sir. And that is just all 26 calls from the records that I mapped out.
From 30 minutes after the homicide to over the course of the next hour.
Almost an hour exactly, yes, sir. And then there were 44 calls that I mapped out from 2:22:45 p.m. until 5:23:18 p.m. And these access towers, 156.814 and 156.815, two different antennas, antenna 5 and 15, with an azimuth of 240 degrees and antenna 133 with an azimuth of 300. So that device was hitting that tower with those different antennas 44 different times between those, actually it's a 3-hour time period.
So the phone has left the coverage area for the tower that covers the Gospel Garden apartments,
Yes,
which is South Memphis.
yes.
And it has traveled
This is the
substantially east, is that
Yes, sir.
correct? And I'm looking at the map here, is it Hickory Hill, is that what we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the Hickory Hill area of Memphis. And that is 222 to 523?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Those are the 44 transactions that I mapped out for that 3-hour time period. It's very difficult to see. It was very difficult to put into a presentation. What we're seeing is 13 calls that I mapped out. Kind of shows the device moving in a north from the Hickory Hill area towards the Baptist East location of Walnut Grove and Interstate 240. And those calls, the last tower hit at 5:48 on that northernmost tower at the very top of that picture. And those transactions show that device moving northbound. And the 5:48, that was the last data from that device I could map from the CDRs. We go from Hickory Hill on the bottom and just head north. And those were the 13 transactions that I mapped out.
All right, that was the Justin Johnson phone. 513 is a Cornelia Smith phone?
Yes, sir. The 513-6236. And there was no data to map between 11 and 12. It has for 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., but from 11 to 12, there was nothing for me to map. There was no transactions there. And then from 12 to 1, you had 5 different calls that I have listed here that access towers, around the Lamar and Sims. So starting the top You've got an incoming voice call from 901-213-7867 that came in at 12:01:26. That call accessed tower 158661, sector 13, azimuth 290, facing west-northwest. That call lasted 1 minute, 12 seconds. Then a second incoming call from 901-236-1625 at 12:02:55 that accessed tower 158661, sector 13, azimuth 290, facing west-northwest as well. That call lasted 9 seconds. You have a third call, incoming call from 901-236-1625.
All right, well, wait a second, I got distracted because something caught my attention. This last call these last two calls we talked about, at 12:02 and 12:04.
Yes, sir.
All right, it's an incoming call from 236-1625.
Yes, sir.
Well, we know what number that is.
That is Justin Johnson's cell phone number.
Okay, so we're looking at Cornelius Smith's call detail records,
Yes, sir.
and at 12:02 and at 12:04, he receives phone calls from Justin Johnson's phone.
Correct, sir. Then the fourth transaction, incoming call from 901-273-4691 at 12:11 that accessed tower 156958, sector 12, azimuth 270, which is facing west. There was no duration recorded for that call. And then at 12:51, the last call that I mapped was an incoming voice call from 901-273-4691 at access tower 161877, sector 13, azimuth 340, which is facing northwest. And there was no duration for that call either.
So it looks like with regard to Mr. Smith's phone, you're going to be able to map some stuff at 12:01, 12:02, 12:04,
Yes, sir.
12:11. But then not any time between 12:11 and 12:51,
Correct.
okay, which would be the time the homicide would fall in there.
Yes, sir. These were the towers that were accessed, and you can't really see the date and time that they were accessed. There were 3 calls on the that tower 158161 bottom tower. 3 calls there, and the times 12:01, 12:02, and 12:04. And then the other 2 towers, the calls.
Is that, there's no pen that I can see now. That would provide coverage for the Lamar and Sims area, wouldn't it?
Correct, yes, sir. And then the 12:11 call access tower there at the top right. And then the 12:51 call access the tower there in the dead center.
The 12, the one I'm on right now is 12:11, is that right?
12:11:52, yes, sir.
12:11. We provide coverage for the Orange Mound area of Memphis, is that correct?
Yes, sir,
I see there's a pin, this is Bradley, is that right?
that's correct.
And then, so this one's 12:11-ish, is that what you said?
Yes, sir,
And then I move over here to this tower on the left, but that's 12:51, so
That's
we've had a
12:51.
good 40 minutes has passed.
yes, sir.
And now I'm again in the Orange Mound area, and here's Bradley Street.
Yes, sir.
Homicide scene is this red dot.
That is the pin I dropped to the homicide scene, yes, sir.
Tell us what that phone does after 12:51.
The next hour, I looked at from 1 PM to 2 PM. There were only three transactions that I could map out. That was an incoming call from 901-273-4691 at 1 o'clock. And that access tower 65664, sector 11, azimuth of 90, which is facing east. And there was no duration for that call. Then there was a second transaction, was an incoming voice call from 901-900-3143 at 1:14:54. That access tower 65664, sector 1, azimuth of 90, was facing east as well. No duration recorded for that call. And then the third transaction from 901-900-3143 at 1:41:21. That access tower 65664, sector 1, azimuth 90. There's no duration for that call as well.
What does that mean when we see calls with no duration?
It would be if you place a call and you hang up before the other party answers or the call connects, there's going to be no duration there. If there was an abnormal completion on the call, there'd be a system glitch or kind of hiccup, there would be a no duration there.
But it still shows an event on the phone.
In the
A no
records.
duration call still
Yes,
shows
sir.
an event as far as records go.
Yes, sir.
And you're still able to use if it provides a location, you're still able to use that location.
Yes. So looking at the records, the calls that came in, there were only 2 calls, they were incoming and not answered, and then they went to voicemail. But you have to look at the records and the definitions page to determine that. And what I have circled here are the service codes. And luckily, we ask for what these service codes mean, and they give us a definitions list. So I can look at their definition of what a service code means. And the 02A, as defined by T-Mobile, tells us that a call that came in, it was not answered, but then it was forwarded to one of T-Mobile's voicemail service numbers, voicemail service 1-360-842-9999. And those 2 calls that show as 4, they access the same tower 65664, sector 1, with an azimuth of 90. The voicemail that was left was 5 seconds, and the second voicemail was 3 seconds. And we can get that from the raw data that we see right there. And then that is a mapping of that tower, the 65664, sector 1, azimuth 90, facing east. That's the tower that we mapped out.
This is 1 o'clock. 1:14, 1:41, 1:42, 1:46, 1:47.
Yes, sir.
And we are a tower that services Orange Mount. And this is Bradley Street, that's the pin.
Yes, sir.
Could that tower provide coverage for Bradley Street?
That tower could provide coverage for Bradley Street, yes. So there were 17 calls between
And
2 p.m.
Yeah, let me back up.
Yes,
For the slides we just saw, is everything incoming?
Between
One,
1 and 2, everything was incoming. There was no outgoing phone calls. No.
everything's incoming. Does everything go to voicemail?
Nothing was answered, and everything was into voicemail.
Okay, so everything's incoming, everything's not being answered, goes to voicemail. Tower that other side of the street. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That'd be consistent with the phone having been left behind, no one to tend to it.
Could be. If the calls are not being answered, yes, sir. So between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m., there were 17 calls that came in. This is going to get a little, wouldn't say messy, but the first and second, they weren't 2 calls. That was 1 call. It was an incoming call that was not answered and went to voicemail. Then the 4th call and the 5th call was another call that came in unanswered, was sent to voicemail. The software can show that as 2 different transactions, 2 different calls, but looking at the raw records will tell you that's not 2 different transactions. That was an incoming call, was not answered, and it was sent to T-Mobile's voicemail number. And looking at the service codes, again, the 02A tells us the service codes, they're circled. That the call came in, it was not answered, and it was forwarded to one of T-Mobile's voicemail numbers. So you had a series of incoming and outgoing calls of those 17 between 2 and 3 p.m.
Okay, so what is the first outgoing call from?
First outgoing call was at 2:36. I'm sorry, 2:39:33. We got to back up 1 slide.
That stuff that you were explaining, I see outgoing on this list, but I think you were just explaining that that's not a true outgoing call.
That is not a device making an outgoing call.
I got you.
That is a call that's come in, not answered, then it's routed to the voicemail.
So when's the first true outgoing call?
First true outgoing call was at 2:39:33 to 273-4691.
So the first true outgoing call, 2:39, is what you said?
2:39.
You said that.
And these were the towers that were accessed by those incoming calls. You had 7 calls on that top tower.
Gotcha, everything incoming.
Yes, sir.
Tower that could cover Bradley, Orange Mound. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And then the device starts accessing 2 different towers, the tower shown at the bottom.
Once we have that outgoing call at 2:39, and at 2:40 and at 2:56, a bunch of different times.
Yes, sir.
2:43, 2:47, 2:48, 2:50, 2:52, 2:30, 2:55. We start accessing different towers.
Different towers, yes, sir.
South of where we were.
And those towers provide coverage for the area of Lamar and Sims. And then between 3 p.m. and 4 p.m., there were 25 different calls, both incoming and outgoing. Between 3 and 3:20, device access tower 158661, sector 13 with an azimuth of 290 that was facing west. There were 13 calls, 3 incoming and 10 outgoing. Again, item number 6 and 7 is an incoming call. The number was busy this time and it went to voicemail. And we're told that by service code 29. And then after between 3:20 and 4 p.m., the device is going to move around the city. So we're going to see a bunch of different towers being accessed after 3:20 p.m. So this tower right there at Lamar and Sims, there were 16 transactions reported. That was between 3 and 320. They all accessed that one tower between 3 and 320. So the red dot is the pin that I dropped locating the homicide scene. The tower just to the right of it was a tower that device was accessing for that first 20 minutes between 3 and 320.
That's Lamar and Sims.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then it moves over and accesses a tower to the right at 1526. And then just above that at 3:29 p.m. And then that north tower on the top of the sheet at 3:37.
So the phone is just, so it's Lamar and Sims for a while because we've had multiple calls there.
Yes, sir.
And then it's on the move around the city.
Yes. And then when it gets into the downtown area, I kind of broke those up because it got real congested to look at. So you see the towers that were accessed between 3:40 p.m. and 3:55 p.m.
Okay. And all these towers are downtown Memphis,
Yes, sir.
and these towers are all close to each other. I'm looking here, this is one area of downtown Memphis. And our time ranges are,
This is between 3:44 and 3:55 p.m.
okay, so accessing towers in downtown Memphis.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you can proceed.
And then this is still different towers in downtown,
Okay,
3:58 p.m. and both of them 3:58 p.m. The calls were bouncing off, accessing the tower to the right and then accessing the tower to the left. And then there were only 2 calls between 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. One outgoing voice call from 902-901-864-2309 at 418. That call access tower 161877. Sector 1 azimuth 70, which is facing east-northeast. And then the second incoming voice call, 901-318-7238 at 459. That access tower 154315, sector 14 azimuth 6, which is facing east-northeast. And that's what I have mapped on the next slide. Those are the 2 towers that were accessed at 4:18 and 4:59 p.m. The tower
tower north of Bradley,
north of Bradley at
Orange
4:59, and the tower providing coverage for Bradley at 4:18. So, based on the mapping information that
Okay, we're about to switch back to the first phone. We're gonna get a summary, is that right?
yes, sir, we're going to summarize.
I may interrupt you and ask you a couple of questions, but we're going back to Justin Johnson's phone?
Yes, sir. 901-236-1625. And this is all information that I mapped out from T-Mobile. Device, it was accessing a tower. They're providing coverage for the crosstown concourse from midnight to 2:35 a.m.
All right, so consistent with the area of crosstown up till 2:35 a.m.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then the device accessed a tower that could provide coverage for the Valero gas station at 3:18 a.m.
Entirely different area of Memphis, right?
Yes, sir, near the University of Memphis.
Okay.
The device then returned to the area of the crosstown concourse by 4:49 that morning a.m.
Okay.
The device was accessing a tower that provided coverage for the crosstown concourse from 9:56 a.m. to 11:06 a.m. And then the device was accessing towers that provided coverage for the area of Lamar and Sims from 12:02 to 12:10 p.m.
Different area of Memphis than crosstown.
Yes, sir.
By 11:06,
Uh,
well, by 12:02, it's in the area, the coverage area, including Lamar and Sims.
Yes, sir.
And is that also the time frame in which we see the phone calls from this phone to Cornelius Smith?
Yes.
Okay.
Next slide. Right. The device was accessing towers that provide coverage for the area of 2370 Boulevard during the time of the shooting between 12:22 and 12:23.
Towers that cover homicide scene, time of homicide.
Yes, sir. Then the device went to the area of Shelby Drive and Tulane Road from 1 p.m. to 1:59, which was the Gospel Gardens area.
Entirely different area of Memphis.
Yes, sir.
Tower provides coverage to the Gospel Garden, used to be called the Tulane Apartments.
Yes, sir. Then the device went to the area of Hickory Hill Drive and Valleydale Drive from 2:22 p.m. to 5:26 p.m. It was in the Hickory Hill area.
Leaves the area of the Gospel Garden.
Yes, sir. And then the device went to the area of Walnut Grove and Humphreys Boulevard from 5:42 p.m. to the 5:48 p.m. There were no records to map after that.
So you didn't get any more records with location information that you could map after 5:48.
Correct.
Now this is Cornelius Smith's phone.
To summarize the phone number for Cornelius Smith, 901-513-6236. And this is also based on the information that I got from T-Mobile. The device was accessing towers that provided coverage for the area of Lamar and Sims and 1168 Bradley between 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. And the device continually accessed a tower that provided coverage for 1168 Bradley from 12:28 p.m. to 2:38 p.m.
And it's during that time period that everything's incoming.
Yes, sir. And going to voicemail. And then the device accessed towers that provided coverage for the area of Lamar and Sims until 3:19 p.m.
Do you know where Pressure World Car Wash is?
No, sir, I do not. The device traveled around the city to the downtown area between 3:20 p.m. and 4 p.m. And then the device returned the area of 1168 Bradley between 4:16 and 4:28. There were no records to map after 4:59 p.m.
Thank you, Agent. No further questions.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Evans,
You could time for a break, Judge.
I think it will be. Ladies and gentlemen, you've only heard part of this testimony, so it's probably a good time for lunch. So let's just take a lunch break. Let's break until 2 o'clock.
What's next in recess to 2 o'clock?